The elevator doors opened on the 27th floor at 7:43 in the morning. Nobody looked up. That was the first rule of Ardent Capital's headquarters in downtown Chicago. You did not look up when the delivery arrived. You did not make eye contact with the man pushing the cart. You did not say thank you because saying thank you would require you to first acknowledge that a person had entered the room. The man pushing the cart knew this. He had been pushing carts into rooms like this one for 11 months. He understood the architecture of invisibility. He was tall, that was the first thing anyone would have noticed if anyone had bothered to notice. Broad across the shoulders in a way that a uniform polo shirt could not quite contain. His hands on the cart handle were steady, not gripping, not straining, just steady. The kind of steadiness that is not learned in a gym. He moved through the glass-and-rosewood lobby of the 27th floor the way water moves around stones. Efficient, unhurried. He set each package on the reception desk with a small, precise motion. He did not slam, he did not rush. He had a delivery manifest clipped to a board. He checked each item against it with a single downward glance. The receptionist slid the confirmation tablet toward him without looking. He signed with a stylis in one clean movement, not a scrawl, not a performance, a signature. He turned the cart and moved back toward the elevator. That was when she came out of the boardroom. That was when the morning changed. His name was Marcus Hale. He drove a 2009 Ford Transit van for Metro Dispatch Courier Services, which operated out of a beige warehouse on the corner of Kedzie and Fulton, 12 minutes from the Loop by expressway. The van had a dent in the rear bumper from a loading dock incident in February that nobody had gotten around to fixing. The passenger seat held a child's backpack, small, green, shaped like a turtle, and a thermos that had lost its rubber grip somewhere around October but still kept coffee warm until 10. He started his shift at 5:45 every morning. This was not a company requirement. Metro Dispatch asked for 6:15. Marcus arrived at 5:45 because that gave him exactly 43 minutes to sort his own manifest before the other drivers arrived, and the warehouse became a negotiation. He sorted by building first, then by floor, then by weight heaviest to lightest along the route so the cart balanced properly on the elevator and he didn't have to restack at each stop. None of the other drivers did this. None of them had figured out why Marcus's delivery confirmation rate was 99.3% and theirs averaged around 87. He had not explained it to them. He did not explain things to people who had not asked. The locker room at Metro Dispatch held 16 narrow metal lockers. Most of them held shut with combination locks that had long forgotten their combinations. Marcus's locker number 7 had a small photograph taped to the inside of the door. A girl maybe 5 years old in the picture but older now. She was sitting on a hospital bed, not crying, not performing braveness, just sitting, looking at the camera with an expression of extraordinary patience for someone her age. Her name was Lily. Lily Hale had been diagnosed with a condition called autoimmune hepatitis when she was 3 years and 4 months old. She was now 7. The condition was managed, that was the word the doctors used, managed with a combination of medications, quarterly liver panels at Rush University Medical Center, and a diet that Marcus planned and prepared every Sunday evening for the week ahead. He kept the meal plan on a yellow legal pad on the kitchen counter. He cooked on Sundays for 4 hours. He portioned into glass containers because the pediatric hepatologist had mentioned offhandedly that plastic leaching was a consideration, and Marcus had taken that offhand comment and treated it like scripture. He had read everything there was to read about autoimmune hepatitis. This was not unusual for Marcus Hale. He had, over the course of his life, read everything there was to read about a number of subjects. He had a degree in structural engineering from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, graduated 2009, ranked 4th in his class. He had worked for 3 years at Sahlberg and Marsh Structural Engineering in the West Loop, specializing in load distribution analysis for high-rise commercial construction. He had been, by all internal accounts, in one external review in a trade journal, very good. He had left in 2019. He did not talk about why. His neighbor, a woman named Doris Fenn, who was 71 and smelled of lavender and kept an eye on Lily twice a week, knew some of it. She knew that Marcus's wife, Claire, had died in March of 2019 from a late-stage complication that announced itself with no meaningful warning. She knew that Marcus had spent the 3 weeks following Claire's death sitting in a hospital waiting room, not for his wife. That was over, but for Lily, who had been admitted for her first serious flare in the days after the funeral, as if the child's body were grieving in the only language it knew. Doris did not know what Marcus had done in the weeks after Lily came home. Nobody did, he had not spoken about it. What was known was that by June of 2019, Marcus Hale had left structural engineering and applied for a commercial driver's license. The CDL examiner had asked him if he was sure. Marcus had said yes. The examiner, a man named Terrence who had been administering CDL tests for 19 years and had a reasonably good eye for people, had looked at Marcus for a moment longer than the form required. Then he had stamped the paperwork. Marcus's route on that particular Thursday in November covered 11 buildings in the financial district in River North. He was on his fourth building by 8:15. He moved quickly. He did not use the passenger elevator in buildings that had freight lifts. He did not wait for assistance. He did not complain when a loading dock was blocked. He circled, found the next option, adapted. The Ardent Capital building at 333 North Michigan was stop number 7. It was, in physical terms, an ordinary stop. 11 parcels, 3 floors, 2 requiring signatures. Marcus had been coming to this building for 5 months. He knew the freight elevator code. He knew that the loading dock manager, a young man named Eddie, liked to talk about the Bears and that the fastest way to end the conversation was to ask about the offensive line. He liked Eddie, he just had a manifest to finish. The 27th floor was the top floor in the Ardent Capital suite. The reception desk was staffed that morning by a woman named Patricia who had been there long enough to have an opinion about every delivery service in the city, but expressed those opinions only through the precise angle at which she slid the confirmation tablet. Marcus signed, he turned. The boardroom door opened. She was moving fast, that was the first thing. People on 27th floors moved in one of 2 ways, either slowly because they had achieved enough that hurry was beneath them, or fast because something had not gone the way they planned and they were recalibrating. This woman was moving fast in the second way. She had a phone in one hand and a coffee cup in the other, and her heels on that marble floor made a sound like a metronome set to allegro. Her name was Diana Voss, and she was the chief executive officer of Ardent Capital Group, a mid-market private equity firm with approximately $2.1 billion in assets under management, offices in Chicago, New York, and London, and a reputation in the industry for being, depending on who you asked, either brilliantly aggressive or aggressively brilliant. She was 44 years old. She had not slept more than 5 hours in any night for the past 3 weeks, though this would not have been obvious to most observers. She had learned to carry exhaustion invisibly. She wore it the way other people wore a watch, present but not mentioned. She almost walked into the delivery cart. She stopped 1 step short, looked at the cart, looked at the man behind it. Marcus did not step back. He did not apologize preemptively. He simply waited, the cart handle in both hands, giving her space to make the next decision. Something about that stillness made her look at him more carefully than she had intended to. Sorry, she said, though she had not been at fault, force of habit in tight spaces. No problem, Marcus said. She noticed his hands. She could not have explained why. They were the hands of someone who worked with them, but there was something in the way they rested on the cart handle, something precise and deliberate. She had shaken hands with 1,000 people in 20 years of business. She had learned to read hands the way other people read faces. You're with Metro Dispatch, she said. Oh, yes. She reached into the inside pocket of her blazer, black, structured, almost architectural, and produced a business card. It was a simple card, cream stock embossed. Diana Voss, CEO, Ardent Capital Group. She held it out. We're looking for a logistics coordinator, she said. Full-time, benefits. The position needs someone who can. Thank you, Marcus said. He did not take the card. Diana Voss stopped. The card hung in the space between them for a moment. You don't want it, she said. There was no aggression in her voice, genuine curiosity. She was not accustomed to people declining things she offered, not because she was arrogant or not only, but because in her experience, people generally wanted the things she had to give. I appreciate the thought, Marcus said. He moved the cart to the left, gave her a clear path to wherever she was going, then he turned and pushed the cart toward the elevator. Diana Voss stood in the middle of her 27th floor lobby with her business card in her hand, watching the elevator doors close on a delivery man who had, without any apparent effort, made her feel slightly uncertain about something she could not immediately identify. Patricia, at the reception desk, was very carefully not looking at any of this. The elevator light descended, 27, 26, 25. Diana put the card back in her pocket and went to her next meeting. She thought about it 3 more times that day. She could not explain why. Marcus was home by 4:15. He picked Lily up from school at 3:30. Doris Fenn covered the gap on the days he ran late, but he ran late only 4 times in 11 months, and he had tracked it in a small notebook he kept in the van's center console. Lily told him about a project on the water cycle. She was precise about the details in the way that children are when they are excited, not in sequence, but in layers, starting with what was most interesting and working outward. He listened the way he listened to everything, completely. They had dinner at 6. Lily ate what was in her Tuesday-Thursday container. Marcus ate the same thing. He did not make separate food for himself. He had read early on that children with dietary restrictions often struggled with the social isolation of eating differently, and he had quietly decided to simply eat whatever Lily ate. He had not announced this. He had not made it a statement. He had just done it. After dinner, he sat at the kitchen table with a library book, Structural Analysis, 3rd edition, the kind of textbook that cost $200 new but could be had for $4 from the library's discard pile. He read for 40 minutes while Lily did homework at the other end of the table. At 8 o'clock, he closed the book. He walked down the hall. He checked that Lily's medications were laid out for the morning, the small amber bottles arranged in the order they were taken, beside a glass of water he would refresh in the morning. He went to bed at 9:15. He had not thought about Diana Voss or her business card since he drove away from 333 North Michigan. He did not think about the things he had walked away from. He had found in the years since Claire that the past was a room best entered deliberately and exited promptly. He could walk in when he needed something. He did not linger. What he could not have known, what no one had told him because no one had thought it was his business to know, was that in the 27th floor conference room, a presentation had been delivered that morning that was beginning to unravel. Slowly, the way expensive things unravel, not all at once, but in small, expensive pieces. The presentation had been delivered by a man named Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole was 38 years old. He was the director of strategic acquisitions at Ardent Capital. He had an MBA from Wharton and a gift for presenting complex financial structures in language that sounded authoritative without requiring the listener to actually understand what they were agreeing to. He wore clothes that cost money without looking like they cost money, which is the most expensive kind of clothes to wear. He had been at Ardent for 4 years. He had been watching Diana Voss for 4 years with the particular attention of someone who has decided that the space between where they are and where they want to be is occupied by a single other person. He was not a stupid man, he was something more dangerous, a patient man with a selective conscience. The presentation that morning had been about the Meridian portfolio, a potential acquisition of 3 commercial real estate assets in Milwaukee, totaling approximately $340 million. Garrett had framed the analysis beautifully. The numbers, as he presented them, made the case compellingly. There were numbers in that presentation that were not accurate. Garrett knew which ones, he had put them there. By Friday morning, 1 day after Marcus had declined the business card, the Meridian deal was in the final stages of internal approval. Diana had reviewed the deck twice. She had brought in her CFO, a methodical woman named Sylvia Chen, who had run the top-line numbers and found them consistent with the supporting materials Garrett had provided. She had asked questions. Garrett had answered them. His answers were technically accurate in the way that a map can be technically accurate and still lead you off a cliff, correct in detail, catastrophically wrong in context. The board call was scheduled for Monday morning. If Diana signed the approval memo over the weekend, the deal would go to term sheet by Tuesday. She was planning to sign. She was also, in the margins of her mind, still thinking about the delivery man who had declined her card. She had not mentioned this to anyone. It was not the kind of thing she mentioned. But she had asked Patricia, somewhat obliquely, if the Metro Dispatch courier had been their regular driver for long. About 5 months, Patricia had said. He's always on time. He's the only one who actually checks off each package individually. Diana had nodded and moved on. She was someone who collected small observations the way others collected data points, and she had not yet decided what to do with this one. The junior analyst's name was Priya Kapoor. She was 26 years old. She had been at Ardent for 14 months, hired directly out of her master's program at Northwestern. She was, by any measure that actually mattered, the most technically capable analyst on the acquisitions team. She had a quality that is rare in firms organized the way Ardent was organized. She checked her own work before she submitted it. She had been assigned to the Meridian deal as supporting analyst, which meant she had done much of the underlying modeling that Garrett then incorporated selectively into his presentation. On Friday afternoon, sitting at her desk on the 25th floor, Priya was reconciling her original model against the final presentation deck because she had a habit of doing this after major presentations. Not because anyone asked her to, but because she found errors unsettling the way some people find crooked pictures unsettling. She could not leave them alone. She found the first discrepancy at 2:47 p.m. A capitalization rate assumption in the Milwaukee Asset 3 projection. Her model had used 6.2%, drawn from comparable market transactions she had researched over 2 weeks. The presentation deck showed 5.1%. That difference across a $120 million asset was not small. She assumed it was a version error. She opened the shared drive to check. The shared drive showed that the file had been modified. The modification timestamp was 11:58 p.m. on Wednesday, late the night before the presentation. The file had been modified by a user logged in as G. Cole. Priya sat very still for a moment. She pulled the version history. She compared the versions line by line with a focus that made the noise of the office recede into something distant and irrelevant. By 4:30 p.m. she had found 4 discrepancies. All of them moved in the same direction. All of them made the deal look better than her analysis supported. All of them had been changed after her submission and before the presentation in modifications attributed to Garrett Cole's login. Her hands were not shaking. She was the kind of person whose hands did not shake. But she sat for 11 minutes without moving, which was, for Priya Kapoor, the equivalent of someone else packing the room. She had several options. She knew which one she was going to choose. She just needed a minute to make her peace with what it was going to cost her. At 4:41 p.m., she saved a copy of the version history to her personal work folder, printed 2 physical copies on the 25th floor printer, folded them, and put them in the inside pocket of her laptop bag. At 4:55 p.m., she knocked on the door of the CFO's office. Sylvia Chen was still at her desk. She was always still at her desk at 4:55 p.m. She looked up over reading glasses and said, "Priya." "I need to show you something," Priya said, "about Meridian." She laid the printed pages on the desk. Sylvia Chen was 61 years old and had been a CFO for longer than Priya had been alive. She had a quality that was rarer than people assumed in someone at her level. She was not afraid of being wrong. Being wrong was a data point. It was useful. It was far better than not knowing. She read the version history. She read it again. She looked at Priya. "Sit down," she said. Priya sat. "Walk me through your original assumptions," Sylvia said, "all of them from the beginning." They were there for 2 hours. At the end of 2 hours, Sylvia had 3 pages of her own notes and an expression that she was carefully maintaining in a neutral arrangement, which was not the same as a neutral expression. "Go home," she said to Priya. "Don't discuss this with anyone. I'll call you this weekend." "Are you going to?" Priya started. "Go home," Sylvia said, not unkindly, just, "this is where your part ends for tonight." Priya went home. She did not sleep well. Sylvia Chen called Diana Voss at 7:15 Saturday morning. Diana was already awake. She was at her kitchen table with the Meridian approval memo in front of her and a pen in her hand, and she had been staring at the signature line for 20 minutes, which was unusual. She was not a woman who stared at signature lines. She signed or she did not sign. The fact that she was starring meant something she had not yet named. She picked up on the first ring. "Diana," Sylvia said, "don't sign the Meridian memo." "La pause. Talk to me," Diana said. Sylvia talked. She laid it out precisely, as was her way. The discrepancies, the timestamps, the version history, Priya's original assumptions versus what had appeared in the presentation. She named Garrett Cole's login modification directly and without editorializing. Diana listened without interrupting. This was one of the things that made her genuinely good at her job. Beneath the speed and the aggression, she could listen without preparing her response simultaneously. She was fully inside what Sylvia was saying. When Sylvia finished, there was a silence of approximately 8 seconds. "How bad is it?" Diana said. "If we'd closed at the numbers Garrett presented," Sylvia said, "we would have overpaid by somewhere between $35 and $50 million, depending on market movement over the next 18 months. Another silence. "Send me everything Priya found," Diana said. "Everything, version histories, originals, the works. I want to be looking at the same thing you are." "Already sent," Sylvia said. "I'll call you at noon." Diana put the phone down. She looked at the approval memo. She looked at the pen in her hand. She put the pen down very carefully on the table. She did not pick it up again that morning. She did not call Garrett Cole that day. She did not call him because she needed to think before she spoke, and she needed to think before she spoke because she was aware, with a clarity that arrived only in the worst moments, that she had been made to feel certain. That was the thing. She had not been bulldozed or browbeaten into this deal. She had been certain. She had reviewed the deck. She had asked questions. She had felt the particular satisfaction of a decision that had been properly examined. She had been certain because someone had worked carefully to make her certain. She sat with that for a long time. There was a window in her kitchen that faced east. The light came through it at a low November angle, thin and specific. She watched the light move across the floor for a while. It moved slowly enough that you could only tell it was moving if you looked away and looked back. She called her executive assistant at 10 and said, "Garrett Cole's access to the Meridian deal files, I need it suspended as of now. All shared drive access. I need it done quietly and I need it done before Monday." "Of course," her assistant said, with the measured tone of someone who had worked for Diana Voss long enough to know that the instruction contained everything she needed to know. "And get me Priya Kapoor's direct number," Diana said. She called Priya at 11:30. "I've looked at everything you found," Diana said. "I want you to know two things. First, you were right to bring it to Sylvia. Second, I want you to be the lead analyst on the re-examination, not supporting lead. That's effective now." A pause on Priya's end, a brief one. "Understood," Priya said. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Diana said. "The work's going to be significant." She was quiet for a moment. "You should have been lead from the beginning," she said. "That's my error, I'll fix it." She ended the call. She sat in her quiet kitchen. The November light had moved. It was at the edge of the floor now, almost to the wall. She had a board call on Monday and a deal that was not what she had been told it was, and a director of strategic acquisitions who had manipulated the numbers with enough precision that she had not caught it herself. And she was sitting in her kitchen on a Saturday morning thinking about a delivery man who had looked at her business card and said, calmly and without apparent difficulty, "No thank you." She could not explain the connection her mind was making, but the mind makes its own connections regardless. Monday arrived the way Mondays arrive after bad Saturdays, too quickly and with no regard for readiness. Garrett Cole was called into Diana's office at 9 a.m. He arrived with the smoothed-over composure of someone who did not yet know that the floor had shifted beneath him, though perhaps, something in the quality of the silence in the outer office had registered somewhere below his certainty. Diana did not perform the conversation. She was not angry in the way that announces itself. She laid the version history printouts on the desk between them the way a navigator lays out a chart matter-of-factly, because the chart is where you are and there is no point pretending otherwise. "Tell me about these modifications," she said. Garrett looked at the pages. He looked at them for 3 seconds. 3 seconds is a long time when it is the only time you have. He tried 3 things in sequence. He questioned the methodology, he raised the possibility of a system error, and he suggested that the assumptions had been discussed and approved in a context that Priya had perhaps misunderstood. Each attempt was met with silence. Specific, informed silence, the kind that carries documents. He stopped. "We'll need to discuss the terms of your departure," Diana said. "HR will reach out today." She did not raise her voice, she did not list his failings. She had said the essential thing and she stopped. Garrett Cole left the office at 9:24 a.m. Diana was alone. She looked at her desk, at the window, at the city below, which was doing what cities do on Monday mornings, moving, indifferent, enormous. She pressed her intercom. "Patricia," she said, "the Metro Dispatch courier who services our floor, do you have a name?" "Marcus Hale," Patricia said, without any particular hesitation, which told Diana that Patricia had probably known this for a while, and simply not found an occasion to mention it. "I'd like his contact information," Diana said. "From Metro Dispatch, can you get that for me?" "I'll call them now," Patricia said. She received the phone number at 11:15. She stared at it for a while. She did not call. She looked at Garrett Cole's now empty office through the glass wall, at the chair behind the desk where he had sat every day for 4 years, at the coffee mug he had left, which said something corporate and motivational that she had never read closely enough to register. She thought about what she needed, not what she wanted, not what was convenient, what she needed. The Meridian deal was not dead, the assets were real, the opportunity was real. What had been wrong was the analysis, specifically the structural load analysis of the commercial assets, the yield calculations. The physical inspection reports that Garrett had summarized, but that she now realized she had never seen in full. She needed someone who could look at those buildings, actually look at them, not process a summary, examine a structure. She had a staff of 42 people, and none of them had that qualification. She thought about steady hands on a cart handle. She did not call, not yet. She was not ready to make that call without knowing more. She went back to her desk and opened the Metro Dispatch account records. Marcus Hale, CDL license 2019. Route driver, 11 months with Metro, prior employment. The field was empty. Metro Dispatch did not ask for prior employment history on CDL applications. She called the Metro Dispatch operations manager, a man named Frank, with whom she had a standard corporate account. She asked about Marcus Hale. Frank paused. "He's our best driver," Frank said. "Whatever you're thinking about poaching him, he's turned down 3 raises already." "I'm not poaching him," Diana said. "I'd like to know if I can request him for a specific service job, consulting potentially. Is that something?" "That's a conversation between you and Marcus," Frank said. "He makes his own decisions. I stopped trying to make them for him about a month in." Diana looked at the ceiling of her office. "Thank you, Frank," she said. She put the phone down. She was going to have to go in person. She understood this without entirely understanding why she understood it. Some conversations cannot happen over the phone. Some conversations require you to show up at the door. She looked at her calendar, she looked at the window, she looked at the phone. She had a Thursday morning without a hard obligation before 10. She made a note. Thursday arrived cold, a Chicago November cold, which is not a gentle announcement but a statement. Diana drove herself. This was notable. She had a car service. She used it every day. But she drove herself on Thursday morning in her own car, a gray Audi that she drove perhaps 6 times a year because she was going to a place that a car service would have made official. She did not want this to be official. She was not yet sure what she wanted it to be. She had the address from Metro Dispatch, the warehouse on Kedzie and Fulton. She arrived at 5:52 a.m. because she had looked up Metro Dispatch's hours and Frank had mentioned that their drivers started around 6:15 and she had not wanted to miss him. She had, apparently, underestimated him. The loading bay was lit, and the transit vans were already arranged for morning departure, and Marcus Hale was inside the warehouse under the fluorescent light, sorting packages onto a cart with the focused efficiency of someone who has done a thing so many times that the body has memorized it. He did not hear her approach, or perhaps he heard her and simply continued. He sorted 3 more packages before he looked up. He looked at her, his expression did not change. "Ms. Voss," he said. "You know my name," she said. "You gave me your card." "Oh, you didn't take it." "No," he said. He looked back at his manifest. He was not being rude. He was doing his job and he was waiting for her to say something that required his attention. She said, "I need your help." Marcus did not look up immediately. He clipped 1 more package to its position on the cart, then he looked at her. "With what?" he said. She told him not everything. She had the instinct to compress, to pitch, to present the essential thing in its most favorable frame. But Marcus Hale was looking at her with a quality of attention that made compression feel dishonest, so she told him more than she had planned. She told him about the Meridian deal, about the 3 commercial assets in Milwaukee, about Garrett Cole and the adjusted numbers and what she had found when she actually looked. About the structural inspection report she had in her briefcase, thick folders, photographs, measurements that she had read twice and understood maybe 60% of because she was a capital allocator, not a structural engineer, and reading a structural report is not the same as understanding one. She told him she needed someone who could look at those buildings, really look. When she finished, Marcus was quiet for a moment. "I heard you let someone go," he said. She was surprised, not that he had heard news in buildings moves faster than elevators. She was surprised that he had named it directly. "Yes," she said. "Over the numbers." "Yes." He nodded slowly, not approvingly or disapprovingly, just processing. "You could hire a structural firm," he said. "I could," she said. "I'm going to have to eventually, but I need a preliminary assessment before Monday's board call, and I need it from someone who," she paused. "I need it from someone who I can trust to tell me what they see, not what they think I want to see." She said this plainly, without performance. Marcus looked at her for a moment, just looked. The fluorescent light of the warehouse was not flattering to anyone, but Diana Voss sat in it without adjusting. She had come to a warehouse at 5:50 in the morning and she was sitting in bad light and she was asking for something. "What does this work look like?" Marcus said. "I'd need 3 days," she said. "Milwaukee, the 3 sites. I need you to review the inspection reports tonight and accompany me tomorrow, Saturday and Monday morning. I'll have a licensed structural firm on the phone for the formal documentation. You'd be telling me what you see informally so I know what questions to ask." "I have a route tomorrow," Marcus said. "I'll arrange coverage with Frank." "I need to be home by 4, Marcus said. "Every day, that's not flexible." "Understood," she said. The pause. "What's the rate?" he said. She named a number, a fair number, more than fair, actually. She had looked at consulting day rates before she drove over. He looked at the number the way you look at a number, when money is not the deciding factor. "All right," he said. She felt something she did not name, something in the vicinity of relief, though layered with something more complicated. "I have the inspection reports in my car," she said. "I can leave them with you tonight." "Leave them at the front desk," he said. "I'll be here at 5:45. She nodded, she stood up, she looked at him for one more moment. "Can I ask you something?" she said. He waited. "Why didn't you take the card?" Marcus looked at the manifest on his clipboard, at the packages on the cart, at the van with the dented bumper and the turtle backpack on the passenger seat. "I'm where I need to be," he said. She drove away from the warehouse at 6:03. The city was getting light in the east. She did not go to the office immediately. She drove to the lake and sat in her car for 7 minutes looking at the water, which in November was the color of old pewter. She thought about a man who was where he needed to be. She had not known what that felt like in approximately 9 years. She picked him up at 6 the next morning. He was standing at the warehouse entrance with the inspection reports in a folder he had organized. She saw this immediately when she opened the passenger door. The documents were tabbed and annotated in a clean, small hand, different colored tabs for different asset types. He had read 400 pages of technical documentation overnight. She did not say anything about it. She pulled into traffic. He opened the folder. "Asset 3 has the most significant issues," he said. "The western facade inspection from 2021 shows hairline cracking in the concrete shear wall at the third-floor junction. The inspector called it cosmetic, but the photograph on page 247 suggests the crack has traveled laterally, which would indicate differential settlement rather than surface weathering. If that's what it is, the remediation cost isn't cosmetic." Diana looked at the road. "How significant?" she said. "Depends on the soil conditions. I'd want to see the foundation report." "Page 310, she said. He turned to page 310. The drive to Milwaukee took 90 minutes. He spoke for 40 of them occasionally when something in the documents warranted it. He did not speak to fill silence. The silence between his observations was not uncomfortable, it was working silence. Diana drove and listened, and when he paused, thought about what he had said before asking the next question. She could not remember the last time she had had a conversation in which both people were simply thinking. They walked the first asset at 8:30, a 7-story mixed-use commercial building on the near west side of Milwaukee. Marcus walked it the way he walked everything, steadily, with stops that looked small from the outside but were, when she watched closely, very specific. He stopped at a column junction on the second floor for 3 minutes. He crouched. He pressed 2 fingers lightly against the concrete. He stood. "This column has been patched," he said. "In the last 2 years, based on the color differential. It wasn't in any inspection report I read." He moved on. He stopped at a mechanical room door on the 4th floor. He looked at the door frame, not the door. "The door frame is out of plumb," he said. 1-point-something degrees, you can see it by the gap at the top." He pointed. The gap was obvious once he pointed. "That corresponds to the settlement issue in the western shear wall. It's not isolated." He moved on. He said nothing that was not specific. He made no pronouncements. He observed and described, and when she asked a question, he answered it directly and stopped when the answer was complete. She had met very few people in her professional life who knew how to stop when the answer was complete. They had lunch in a diner near Asset 2, a booth by the window, coffee. Marcus ordered soup and a sandwich. He checked his phone once, a brief check, the specific check of someone looking for one piece of information and not wandering, and put it away. "You have a family," she said. It was not entirely a question. A daughter, he said. She's 7. Does she know what you do? Diana said. She knows I drive a van, Marcus said. She thinks the van is funny. She calls it the turtle. He paused, the backpack on the seat. Diana looked at him. Do you miss it? She said. The engineering. The soup arrived. Marcus looked at it. I'm at the sites, he said. It doesn't leave. He picked up the spoon. Diana looked out the window at the Milwaukee street. Gray sky, a woman walking a dog, a delivery truck blocking a loading zone. I owe you an apology, she said. He looked up. Not for the card, she said, though I shouldn't have assumed, for the way people on 27th floors look at people who come through those floors or don't look the way I didn't look. Marcus set the spoon down. He looked at her with the same quality of attention he had given to the column junction on the second floor of Asset 1, full and specific. You're looking now, he said. He picked up the spoon and ate his soup. Diana Voss looked out the window for a while. The light on the Milwaukee street was flat and gray and honest. Saturday went the same way, Asset 2 and a beginning at Asset 3. Marcus was at the warehouse at 5:45. He said nothing about having been there all along. He had additional notes. He had cross-referenced the 2021 inspection against a Milwaukee City building permit database. She did not ask how he had accessed it and found a permit for emergency waterproofing work on Asset 3 in 2022 that had not been disclosed in the deal documentation. That permit should have been in the seller's disclosure, he said. It wasn't, she said. No, he said. This was, in the language of the deal, significant. The omission changed the negotiating posture entirely. She called her general counsel from the car on the way to Site 3. Marcus sat in the passenger seat reading the Asset 2 structural notes he had drafted the night before, making small corrections, not listening to her call in the way that people who are listening pretend not to listen. Actually not listening. There was a quality to his not listening that was respectful rather than disengaged. She ended the call. He says the permit omission gives us grounds to walk or renegotiate, she said. Yes, Marcus said. What would you do? He looked at the folder in his lap. Renegotiate, he said. The buildings are real, the location has merit. Asset 1 and 2 are sound with maintenance deferred on 2's HVAC system that's priced in if you know to ask. Asset 3 needs work, real work. If the price reflects the actual condition, the deal is defensible. By how much would you renegotiate? He told her a number, not a range, a number. It was a very specific number. She looked at him. Based on what? She said. Remediation costs for the shear wall, the settlement underpinning, the waterproofing that was done but will need redoing because the 2022 work was inadequate, page 310 of the foundation report. If you look at the soil absorption rate, plus a deferred maintenance schedule for Asset 2 systems. I can write out the methodology if you need it for the board. Yes, she said, I need it for the board. He nodded and opened the folder to a fresh page. He wrote for most of the drive. She dropped him off at 4 on Saturday. He got out of the car and walked toward the building where he lived, a 3-flat on a quiet block, brick. A small front garden that was past its season but had been tended, the evidence of tending still visible in the shape of things. She watched him go. She drove home. She sat in her car in her building's parking garage for 4 minutes after she turned off the engine. She had spent 2 days in close quarters with a man who had walked away from a career that would have paid him 3 times what she was paying him for 2 days of consultation, who had built a life around a child's medication schedule and a library book on structural analysis, who had looked at her business card and declined it without a single moment of hesitation or performance. She was trying to understand the things she had misread. She was trying to understand how she had spent so many years in rooms full of people who were very good at appearing to have what Marcus Hale simply had. She got out of the car and went upstairs. She had a board presentation to prepare. The board call was Monday morning at 9. Diana presented the reanalysis herself. She named Priya Kapoor as the lead analyst on the structural review and used Marcus's methodology, attributed to an independent structural consultant, for the renegotiation figure. She presented the permit omission. She presented the revised deal terms. She presented, without editorial comment, the fact that the original numbers had been altered and by whom. The board was quiet for a moment after that. The board chair, a man in his 60s named Robert Lind, who had been in private equity since before Diana had graduated college, said, "And the renegotiation position, you're confident in it?" "Yes," Diana said. "The structural assessment is solid." "It is." Who ran it? An independent structural engineer, Diana said. I'll provide the full CV and methodology in the post-call documentation. Robert Lind made a sound that was not quite approval, but was the sound he made when things were where they should be. The deal was approved for renegotiation at the revised terms. Garrett Cole was gone from the building by the time the call ended. His office had been quietly cleared over the weekend. The motivational coffee mug was gone. Diana walked back to her office after the call. She stopped at Priya Kapoor's desk. Priya looked up. The board approved renegotiation, Diana said. Yes, Priya said, I saw the update. The lead analyst credit on the deal documentation, your name is on it, all of it. The permit finding the renegotiation basis. Priya was quiet for a moment. The structural analysis wasn't mine, she said. That came from. The structural analysis informed the numbers. The numbers came from your original model, Diana paused. You were right from the beginning, we're acknowledging that in writing. Priya looked at her desk, at the laptop screen, at a point slightly past both of those things. Thank you, she said. You earned it, Diana said and walked on. Marcus was on his route Monday morning. He had received the consulting payment the previous Friday, direct transfer as they had arranged. He had looked at the confirmation on his phone and noted it the way he noted things that were completed, with a brief, clean attention, and then he moved on. He delivered 11 buildings on Monday. He sorted his manifest at 5:45. He had his coffee. He drove the van, the dented van, the turtle-called van, through the gray Chicago morning with the deliberate efficiency he brought to all things. At the 333 North Michigan stop, he rode the freight elevator to 27. He stacked the packages on the reception desk. Patricia slid the confirmation tablet. He signed. He was turning the cart toward the elevator when the door to the corner office opened. Diana Voss came out. She was not moving fast this time. She walked across the lobby at a deliberate pace and stopped at a distance that was not crowding but was not casual either. She had something in her hand, not a business card. A letter folded once. I wanted to give you this in person, she said. He took it, he looked at it, he did not open it. It's a formal acknowledgement, she said, of your structural assessment and methodology named not independent consultant. Your name, your credentials, I had it countersigned by the board chair. He was quiet. You don't have to do anything with it, she said. It's just a record that the work was yours. It was your board call, he said. It was your analysis, she said. He folded the letter, he put it in the breast pocket of his uniform polo. He did not make a speech about it. How did the renegotiation go, he said. Seller accepted the revised number last night, she said. Exactly the number you gave me. Something crossed his face, not pride exactly, something quieter. The satisfaction of a thing done correctly, which is different from pride because pride is about the self and this was about the thing. Good, he said. He moved the cart toward the elevator. Mr. Hale, she said. He stopped. She had something else to say. He could see that she had something else to say and that she was working out how to say it. He waited. He was patient in the specific way that people are patient when patience is not an effort. I don't have a position to offer you, she said. I know you wouldn't take it if I did, but I wanted to ask, she paused. If there are situations like this one where we need a set of eyes that I trust, would you be open to being called? He considered this. On a case-by-case basis, he said, if it doesn't conflict with my route and I choose whether to take it. Of course, she said. And when I'm on site, he said, I'm not a consultant for the record, I'm a structural engineer reviewing for accuracy. That's what you call me, not a vendor, not a contractor. Understood, she said. He nodded, he pressed the elevator button. Mr. Hale, she said. He looked at her. What you told me in Milwaukee, that you're where you need to be, she paused. I've been thinking about that since Saturday. He said nothing, he waited for the rest. I think I've been confusing being needed with being where you need to be, she said. They're not the same thing. The elevator arrived, the doors opened. No, Marcus said, they're not. He pushed the cart in, the doors closed. Diana Voss stood in the lobby of the 27th floor. Patricia was at her desk, studying her monitor with the absorption of someone who has heard nothing and will continue to hear nothing. The elevator light descended, 27, 26, 25. That afternoon, Diana called an all-staff meeting. 27th floor, the main conference room, 3 o'clock. She had done all staff meetings before quarterly, usually for performance reviews and financial updates. This one was not that. She stood at the head of the table in a room of 42 people and told them what had happened with the Meridian deal. Not a sanitized version, not a corporate communication crafted by external PR. The actual version, that analysis had been manipulated, that they had nearly proceeded on falsified numbers, and that it had been caught by a junior analyst who had checked her own work because that is what rigorous people do. She named Priya Kapoor. She said, "This is what this firm needs more of." She did not name Garrett Cole. That door was closed. She was not going to open it to this room. She said the deal renegotiation was successful, the assets are sound at the revised terms, and the credit for that outcome belongs to the people who did the actual work. She was aware as she spoke that several people in the room were looking at her differently than they had before, not because she had given a speech, because she had not given a speech, because she had stood in a room of people who worked for her and told them a true thing. It was not a comfortable thing, truth often isn't. After the meeting, people returned to their desks. Priya Kapoor sat at hers and opened her laptop and began the Meridian reanalysis in earnest, her name at the top of the document where it belonged. The office moved on as offices do. In a school on the north side of Chicago, a 7-year-old girl named Lily Hale was drawing a picture of the water cycle for her class project. She used blue for evaporation and white for clouds, and a kind of careful, concentrated attention that was, if you were looking for it, recognizable. She drew slowly, she made each part correct before she moved to the next. Her teacher, walking the rows, paused at Lily's desk. "That's very good, Lily," she said. Lily looked at her drawing. "My dad says if you get the structure right," Lily said, "the rest takes care of itself." The teacher moved on. Lily added a small detail to the cloud she was drawing, a particular curve at the edge, because the cloud she had in her head had that curve and she did not want to put down a different cloud. On Tuesday morning, Marcus sorted his manifest at 5:45. He arranged the packages by building, by floor, by weight. He checked the route for dock closures. He poured his coffee into the thermos without its rubber grip. He checked the green turtle backpack to make sure the day's supplies were inside, the medication in its small labeled case, the lunch he had packed the night before. He got in the van. The letter from Diana Voss was in the breast pocket of his jacket, which was folded on the passenger seat. He had read it the previous evening at the kitchen table after Lily went to bed. He had read it twice, the way he read things. He had folded it back along its original crease and placed it at the back of the drawer in the kitchen where he kept documents. He did not think about it often after that. But sometimes, on mornings when the drive to the warehouse was dark and cold, and the city had not yet arranged its public face. On those mornings, he was aware of the letter's existence in the drawer, the way you are aware of the things that know your real name. He drove into the loop. The van moved through the city, the dented bumper, the fluorescent warehouses, the glass towers going golden in the east where the sun was thinking about rising over the lake. He had 4 packages for the 27th floor, and he would deliver them with the same steadiness he delivered everything, and he would sign the tablet in one clean movement, and he would push the cart back toward the elevator, and he would be home at 4:15. Lily would tell him something specific and important about something she had learned. He would listen completely. They would eat what was in the container. He would read at the kitchen table while she did her homework. He would check the medications. He would sleep. He would get up at 5 and do it again. This was not a small life. It was a very large one, carefully made. 6 weeks later, Diana Voss's firm renegotiated the Meridian deal at a price that was, to the dollar, the number Marcus Hale had named in a moving car on a gray November Saturday on the way to a Milwaukee building with a compromised sheer wall. The deal was announced in a brief press release. The release noted the lead analyst, Priya Kapoor. It noted the structural due diligence process. It noted Diana Voss as CEO. It did not mention Marcus Hale because Marcus Hale had specified that it should not, and what Marcus Hale specified was what happened. Priya Kapoor, reading the release at her desk on the 27th floor, sat for a moment. She had asked Diana the previous week who the structural consultant had been, not for credit purposes, just to understand, to know who had seen what she had only suspected. Diana had said, a structural engineer who works a delivery route on the north side because his daughter needs him home by 4. Priya had sat with that for a while. She had gone back to her desk and done her work, which was the work of someone who checks her own models and tells the truth about what she finds, because that is the only way she knows to operate. Somewhere in the city, a van with a dented bumper moved through mid-morning traffic. The driver had a manifest on the seat, a thermos, a green turtle backpack. He was on schedule, he was always on schedule. He had somewhere to be.